This is Cozy Corner. So today we're going to get a little personal, and I want to share with you some of the struggles that I went through as a child. So coming from a blended family, of course, you have your ups and downs. And sometimes those downs were very, very difficult to deal with. The reason being is whenever my parents wasn't quite seeing eye to eye, we would separate. And it's difficult for children in particular because you're used to growing up around all of your siblings. I was the oldest of 5, of course, but growing up around all your siblings and you all have this bond and everything. And I think sometimes it's not taken to the account that it affects the children, although adults have to make their own decision as to what they want to do. But it really took a toll as far as our bond as siblings. I know the dynamic changed, especially with my dad, because it was just me and my brother. And of course, my 2 sisters and my youngest brother went with my mom. And my brother and I had a very, very difficult life on multiple occasions. I recall going to school during one particular time. My middle school years were awful, very awful. And a lot of it had to do with my situation at home, and it really flowed over into my school life. And my dad had some personal things going on with him that he was battling with. So it was me and my brother was kind of left to fend for ourselves in so many ways. And I remember sometimes we would sleep out of a van, or sometimes we would spend the night at people's houses we didn't quite know. These were all friends of my dad, and it was very scary in a lot of ways. Sometimes we wouldn't eat dinner, and a lot of times we didn't really make it to school. And if we did make it to school, we were really late. And I recall my first period teacher, because I will never forget this. I came to school one day and I was extremely late, and I had been marked several times as tardy. And they were threatening to kick us out of school because we're being late too many times. And my dad was trying to reason with them to let them know that we had some situations going on at home as to why we was late. And it was very embarrassing because you have to realize when that happens and you have things that's going on, and sometimes even with, I remember going to school with holes in my clothes and sometimes having to wash the same pair of pants and having to wear that over and over again. And I really felt like I was alone. And with me being the oldest, I wanted to be sure that my brother was taken care of. You know, I kind of put my needs to the side, and when I explained it to my therapist, she explained to me that's why I felt like I had to grow up early, because of a lot of the struggles that I have endured. And I never really talked to anybody about it outside of my therapist. And of course, as I got older, I had the conversation with my parents about how it would affect us. And I think one of the biggest things that really hurt was I felt like I had already felt some neglect from my biological mom because she wasn't obviously present in my life at that time. But I felt neglected by both of my moms. And I couldn't quite understand why she didn't fight for us like she fought for the rest of my siblings. And a lot of the times me and my brother felt like we was alone. And we talked about that a lot. And we struggled. We struggled. Sometimes we would make it to my grandmother's house and was able to stay there and get a hot meal. And sometimes we didn't. We would, like I said, sleep in the van or trying to freshen up at people's houses that we weren't familiar with, or grabbing food at gas stations, whatever we had left. We would try to eat lunch at school because we didn't know if we was going to really eat dinner. And then I got to the point where I started selling candy at school. We used to have this corner store at the end of my grandmother's street. And I used to go and buy candy and sell candy bags. So that way me and my brother would have something to eat. And people didn't realize that we had that struggle and that burden. And a lot of it, I feel like it was unfair also, because when situations like that happen, I feel like there should be a plan put in place as it pertains to children, because children are affected the most in situations like that. Now, of course, I don't know how my other siblings felt about it because they didn't really know. And I don't know if I've ever shared that with them. This may be their first time hearing it themselves. But my brother and I had a very, very difficult life, and it happened on multiple occasions. And I feel like as a parent, both of them, I had a little bit of resentment for them both in that aspect at that time, because children are put in situations that they didn't ask for. And sometimes when your emotions are so high, you don't think about the bigger picture. And knowing that my dad wasn't really in the best place, I felt like there should have been another plan for my brother and I. And of course, it wouldn't have mattered what I would have said because I was a child, and they had the saying, when you're a child, you stay in the child's place. But there were a lot of things that I didn't agree with. And I had a lot of built up emotions and resentment. And I don't think people understand when someone so young have to learn how to fend for themselves, and you feel like no one is listening and no one cares and no one is going to advocate for you, it almost puts you in a state of wondering, what am I doing all this for? I think if it had not been for my brother, I probably would have just found a way to leave on my own. But because my brother was involved, I had to be strong for him. Now, keep in mind, I'm a child. And not only that, but I have health stuff going on. Like I have all this health issues going on. This was before I got diagnosed. So I'm sick. I'm young, and I'm trying to take care of my brother. Because if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. And I think with that, me and my brother's bond was tighter because we shared that struggle. Not something I would wish on anybody, but we shared that struggle. And then I found out that when I was younger, when I was really young, that it was times that we were homeless.